Good morning, everyone. Dex here from ATK, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar, AutoCAD, Better Workflows and Boosted Productivity Part 2. Technical consultant David will be presenting for us. So first, we'll just go through about ATK, all about fostering innovation through consulting and training. ATK Technologies plays a vital role in helping the infrastructure, building, mining, construction, architecture, and manufacturing industries reach their full potential by delivering complete technology solutions and support services such as education, consulting, and IT managed services. Working with visionaries to shape the future of design and in turn enable them through innovation to minimize risks, improve productivities, and achieve excellence. ATK Technologies is considered the business partner of choice and trusted advisor by vendors and clients. We partner with major software and hardware vendors to meet the client's technology needs. We strive to exceed client expectations by understanding the challenges and delivering solutions through experience and innovation. We work with clients and companies of any size, nationally and abroad. Over to you, David.
Thanks, Dexter. You can hear me all right?
Yep, all good, perfect.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks. All right, guys. So welcome to part 2. So basically, we're going to go over a couple of the new features in 2021 that could improve our workflow. We'll also have a look at some commands. We'll also look at auditing blocks if you guys had a chance to play with them since the first part. We'll look at some hatches, some dimensions, and a bit more parametric functionality, and then finish off with the FAQs from last time. So I'll just open up my CAD. So this is 2021. It looks basically the same. There are a few new features, though, that are pretty handy. So the first one, I think personally, is the manage revisions. So if we just go into our view tab, we have this DWG history. So basically, let's just say our client, originally they wanted a wall here and kind of move the island around. And then they got back to us after the weekend. They said, we talked about it. We actually don't want that wall there anymore. Can you please put it back to what we had before? I'm sure you guys have had that kind of discussion before. So now we get this little DWG history. So I can actually have a look at what the old one was. Maybe I'll find a different one. Let me just check. Yeah, okay, so this one, for example. And it gives us this little, kind of like our layers where we can turn on and off. So I'll just turn off the no differences. And now we can see what's not currently in the drawing. I'll just move this away as well. And we can see what is in the drawing. So basically, if we did want to go back to what we wanted, say our client wanted that wall gone and wanted it to be open concept, we can just delete that here. We'll just turn on what's not in our current. And then we can just use this little import function here. And let's just select everything, press OK. You'll notice that it disappears, and that's because it's actually in the drawing now. And now if we just press this, you'll see that our drawing has gone back to our previous iteration of our drawings. So that just saves time. I know me personally, if I did ever have to do some sort of change, I'd just basically copy this and move it away here so that if the client ever did want to change it, I'd just move it back down. So that just alleviates that necessary workflow, I guess. We also get the same kind of thing with XREFs. So let me just go to this XREF and maybe put a rectangle in here. I'll save it. If I go back here, you'll see that we get this little notification now. So you can turn that on and off if you don't want to compare it. But basically, if I do reload it, it'll do that same kind of workflow where it shows what was in the XREF and what was not. And it'll just show you the changes, basically. And then as soon as I just press check, it'll just reload it. Revision clouds are also improved. So let me just find it, revision. If this was a revision, maybe I'll just change the color because it's a little bit, let me find a better one. Layer 0, there we go. So now it actually is its own entity. So if I bring the properties over, you'll see it's actually a revision cloud now, which means that we have a lot more things that we can do with it. So maybe we don't like how big the bubble is. We can change those. So that's been improved as well. There's also a quick measure tool, which is pretty handy. So it's, if you like to type stuff, it's just measure and then geom. If not, you'll just find it in your home and just where our normal measure tab was. If you just click down, you'll see that there's that quick one now. And what this allows us to do is, for example, I'll go to this one where you can actually see. So you'll see that it's already just giving us the dimensions without actually having to measure anything. So we can see it's 3000 millimeters. And if we do just click down, it will actually create that area tool. And if we just hold shift, we can add a couple more areas. And you'll see that it's already calculating that areas. It is in millimeters squared in my case, but at least you don't need to use the area command anymore, and the perimeter's there as well for you. So it's just a very quick and easy way to check a few things. You'll also notice the little right angle signs. So that's just basically telling you that those lines are at a right angle for you. The trim command has also been improved. So I'm just going to switch to this one here. So I'm just going to create a couple of things. So now the trim command is actually smart enough that we don't need to worry. Oh, I changed it back to the old one. Let me just go to this one. It's smart enough now to know that we don't need to select what we want. And same with the extend as well. It'll extend it back. So that's same area here, trim and extend, but now it's a bit smarter. If you did like the other one, you could just change it here, some mode, and then we'll just go back to the standard mode, which will be where you have to actually select stuff. Just change it back to quick. So that's very quickly some things for the new 2021. If you started to play around with blocks from the last time, and maybe as you'll notice here, that insertion point is pretty far off, you can actually change that. So we'll just go to bedit, which is just our block editor. And if we notice, it's just off the side, basically. So all we have to do is move it to 0, 0. And then we just close our block, save the changes. And now you'll notice our insertion point is where it needs to be. That may or may not be useful depending on if you wanted your insertion point to be that way. But it's just something to note. Maybe also you didn't, when you made the block, maybe you wanted to be explodable, but you forgot to do it. So like if I did explode, for example, you can see it could not be exploded. Again, I can change that in my bedit. I'll just go back. And in my properties here, you'll see it says allow exploding. And I'll just say yes. And I'll just save the changes. Just move that away. And now if I explode it, now it's not a block anymore. We can also rename blocks. Say we made a mistake. We'll just get this little one here. So maybe block edited or rec edited. We wanted it to just be that. So now that block would be renamed. In terms of some handy commands, sometimes you do some work and then you wanted to bring back what you've done before. So there is an oops command, which will basically, maybe I'll do a new one. So we did some work and then we deleted that. And then we did some more work. And we're like, oh, actually, we don't want to undo the work that we've already done, but we did need that back. If we just did oops, it'll bring that back for us. So that way we don't have to worry about redoing work after our oops, I guess. There is also break. So where you can select that and you can pick where you want to break the line, which is pretty handy because then maybe we want to fill out these ones, for example. So it's basically just under here, the modify. So there are two now. So break is the original one, but in the improved one in 2021 is break at point. So we could just click that or type it. It depends what you want. And we can just say break at point. So you'll notice that these lines are actually just broken where I set it to be. So again, that's just under the modify tab if you like to press that. And then again, it's break at point if you like to type, and just break is the normal one. Quick select is also something I like to use. So if you just right click quick select, and I'll just move it onto the screen, you get tons of stuff that you can start to pick. So maybe I want to get all my block references, and I can just find basically anything. And you just basically specify, and it's really easy to find stuff. I guess I'll just go name, and maybe I just want this one. Just select all the ones of that rec original, and it'll select it in the whole drawing. Another similar one to that would be lay walk. And that's just going to display all my layers. And as I start to press on the different layers, it's going to show me what's on each layer. So I can see all my different things like that. And as soon as you exit it, it'll just bring everything back. So maybe you're looking for something and you're just, maybe you wanted to know where that element is sitting. And I'll answer that Q&A at the end, just in case. I just don't want to run over time for you guys as well. I want to make sure that you guys get everything. Another command which is pretty handy is the boundary and join. So a lot of people do use join. So actually, I'll just explode this one. And then I'll explode it again. So there is that join command, right, that we're used to using. So now it's that. But there actually is a boundary command, which is pretty similar. But it will create, here, it'll create a boundary basically of the same thing. And you can kind of say what you want it to be. So I'll just say here, and I'll pick that point. And now you'll see it's created this boundary. And now I can move it away. So maybe I didn't want these to be exploded, but I wanted to create a join and a duplicate. So that can actually be transferred over to an XREF as well. So if I did do boundary, and I started to select these ones, it's actually transferred over from the XREF, and I could just copy them basically into my current folder or file, sorry. A similar one is ncopy as well. Maybe you guys are aware of that one. And ncopy will do basically that same thing. So I can start to select stuff from my XREF and then put it into my current drawing. If we did, maybe we'll do a rectangle and another rectangle here. I do like to use the overkill sometimes. I usually used to do that whenever I do 3D printing, because then at least the machine doesn't need to do as many lines. So if you did do overkill, it'll give you this basically, and it'll give you your tolerance. And basically once I do it, there's only going to be that one line here now instead of the two. And you'll notice that it's actually connected these ones. So it's something to think about if you do have overlapping things. It's a quick way to do that, to clean it up. In terms of hatching, I like to, at the beginning, basically just do HP layer, which will let me allow, basically wherever I put the hatches, they'll go onto that layer. So I'm just going to say hatches, and it'll create that hatches layer for me. I also like to use HP color, color. And I can set that like 252 is kind of like a grayish. So now all of my hatches are going to go to my hatch layer, and they're going to be that certain color. So now if I do my hatch, and let me just select the brick because we'll need that in a second. and I put that here. Let me just move my properties over. You'll see that it's hatches and it should be 252. It's displaying white. They are displaying that though. It's just the layer that's that, but the hatch itself is 252. Sometimes you also get stuff from third parties. So maybe these weren't supposed to be like that, but if you notice, there's just basically a little bit of a gap, and that could happen depending. Maybe it came from Rhino and they just didn't bring the wall perfectly enough. So there is an HP gap tool. So if I set that maybe to 1,000, which is the tolerance, and I'll just delete this and I'll create a hatch and I'll put it here. Let me just redo that HP gap. Yeah. Sometimes I can get it to work. Sometimes it doesn't want to, but usually it gives us a warning. Let me just play with associative and bring it back. Sometimes that forces it, but there should be an error that you get if you're not already using associated hatches. Let me try and force it. I think 2021 is pretty good at picking it up. I had problems with the other ones, but basically it should say that there is a gap and do you want to still hatch, and it'll actually fix it for you. I can't force it to do it at the moment. 2021 is pretty good at fixing that, but I know I had that problem in other ones. So HP gap tool is basically our friend for hatches. Let me just try it one more time. It worked when I did it this morning. I could force it. All right, that's right. We could also use the OSNAP and then hatch. So similar to our OSNAP before, but now we can actually, if we set it to 1, we can now actually hatch, snap to our hatches. So for example, if I move this, I can actually snap it to my hatches. Whereas if this is on 0, it won't actually see stuff to hatch it on, or to snap to, sorry. We can also play around with the origin mode. So it's either, if you like to type, it's HP origin mode. Origin mode. And here there is the 5 different ones. So I'll quickly bring up this. Let me just get my internet open. So these are the values basically. So you can set it to these if you are always potentially, maybe you always want your bricks to be bottom left corner, for example, then you could just set it to 1 and it'll do that. So I'll show you that if I did 1 and then I created a new hatch. You'll see that now my brick has changed. So you can still do the same thing if we go here, origin, and you can actually, these are basically the same ones. So if I change that, these will change. So that's the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's just something there. If you thought, I wish I had a bit more control over my hatches, that's basically where you can find that. We can even put our hatches in tool palettes. So if there is something that you use a lot, let me just find my hatches. You can actually, basically what I did was I found the scale that I wanted, the color that I wanted, and just hold your right mouse key and you can just drag it over. I'll just do that here for a second. And then basically now I could just drag my stuff into here. And I don't even have to think about it. It's already set to the scale that I want, set to the color that I want. I believe Autodesk has some in here already as well that you can do similar with. So it's just a little bit faster. And you don't have to worry about typing hatch or finding the hatch button and then finding all that and setting everything. So I'll just have a quick look at some dimensions. So I'm just going to quickly make these. Okay, and I'm just going to break this. Okay, so we could use DimSty. I'm not sure if you guys have looked into your DimSty, or maybe your company has already done this. But if we go to our modify, we can start to play around with our dimension style. So you don't have to use the out of the box one if you don't want to. So for example, I've changed my lines and my spacing and even how it offsets from the lines. My symbols and arrows, you can pick all the different ones here. I said what I want my arrow size to be, and I basically just changed everything to how I like it. Same with the text. I made it sure so that my text is always that color, for example, and how you want it to be aligned, even the offset distance from the line itself. And then personally, like how I want my units to be and even my precision. And I also changed this to a period because sometimes I think the out of the box one is a comma. So you can change that as well. So that's just something I like to do because then I could just, so there's a few ways, there's a few things that I like to use for my dimensions. So I do like to use, I have a Lisp that I use. It's just an automatic dimension, basically. So if I just do AD and I select my options, it gives me this. So basically I can just say where I want my dimension to be positioned, inside, outside, for example, and then I could just start to pick my lines. So as I did that, it already put everything on. This one's not ideal. Maybe I would run it again and just make sure, because it'll actually offset it as I said. And it'll just do that. You could also use your quick dim, which will do pretty much the same. I just chose the other one just because right away it's just offsetting it how I wanted it to be, and it's just a bit more uniform. So I'm just a little bit more picky that way. I've also created my own what I call a super dimension tool. So I'll quickly go into the CUI and show you. So I've changed that normal one and I've changed it in my annotate tab. So I'm just going to go to my ribbon. So you'll have them sometimes in your annotate tab. So this is the normal one, dimension. And this is just my super dimension that I made. And it's also in my home tab. Annotation. Here, super dimension. And then I just said large with text. I just said what it was. And I've created this macro. So basically, it's going to create a new layer every time I do it. And it's going to name it a_annotation dimensions, which will create a new layer. I say the color that I want it to be and what it actually is. So it's a linear dimension. So now every time I just use my super dimension and I go here, let me just bring my properties over. You'll see it's made my annotation dim, and then it's a bit buggy, but if I just go to it again, it'll change to the color as well that I specified, 141 in my macros. And so basically it's created the dimensions, it's created my layer, it's created my color, and it's associated with the dimension style that I created. So now I don't have to worry about it. See, like if you notice that active layer was 0, but regardless of me, what I'm using, it'll always put these on their appropriate layer. So I'll just bring this over from my other screen as well. Sorry. You'll see that it's changed its color automatically and it's put it on its associated layer, and it has all of the properties that I want it to be. So I don't even have to think about changing to my layers anymore. It's just going to do it automatically for me. I'll just save that. That's all right. And I'll pull up Civil 3D because a few of you guys really like that Civil 3D thing. So I'll quickly show you another script that I've created. So let me just go to my Dynamo. And it's just going to read the layers that I want it to do, so polylines. And it's going to figure out which one was drawn first, and it's going to put in a room name and its number. So if I just press run, you'll see that it already created that for me. I'll just change this to automatic just to show you the power of it. So if I did copy this over and I moved it here, for example, and I press enter, it's already starting to create it. I've obviously played around with it before. That's why it's moved up to 36. But regardless, it's always putting it in the middle because that's where I specified. And it's always counting how many rooms I've made. So as I start to copy these around, it's starting to number them all. And then again, I can always just go in here within CAD and it's text, so I can change it. Okay, I'll just close this out. You can still do similar in CAD itself, and I'll show you that right now. Let me just minimize that. So I've done similar here. So basically this is just a parametric room with some attributed text. So if I go into here, I can actually just change this to whatever I want, storage maybe, and it'll change. And all these are changing based off of my calculations that I've put in. And I'll show you that right now quickly. And then I'll show you how I adjust that. So I'll just go into B-edit and I'll go to my room layout. So last time we kind of talked about all these, let me just close this as well. All of these different visibility that you could do and different rotations and stretches and all that. There is also another area, which is just here. So the constraints. So I basically created a constraint and I've constrained them to the lines. So even my text will always read basically the room length and divided by 2. So it's always there. And same with here, the room width divided by 2. That way it's always in the middle, regardless of when I start to shift it, it'll always put it in the middle. And then even my area. So basically this was just an example of, I want my room to be 10.5 square meters and I want to find a shape that will always be aligned to that. So these are all calculating against one another to always be correct. So I'll show you that in an example. Maybe I wanted, let me just select this. Maybe I wanted my room width to be 4,000, for example. Right away, it's going to, I just need to regen it though, but right away, it's going to calculate that based off of that square meters. And again, even if I just do this, it'll always constrain them. You do have to regenerate it, unfortunately, but you'll see that it's there. And if I did actually change this to maybe, oh, actually, because it's in millimeters, I'll just put it 2 here. That'll be easier. And regenerate it again. You'll see that this switched to 20.5 square meters. And now again, I could start to play around with it. So these are basically just all calculations from the B-edit. And I'll just go back into it because these are field conditions. So I'll just go into this one here and I'll edit my field and I'll move it to this one. So there it is. So it's a formula and the formula is basically, can you see it in here? No. I'll go to edit this field as well. So I'm basically taking an object similar to the last time when I showed you the viewport object. So I'm selecting an object, which is one of the lines, and I'm getting its length and just taking its current units. So, and then again, obviously formula is just length times width. And then so it's always going to be reading those as they change, and that will update this. And then I just have some additional formatting basically to add a suffix to just make it how I want it to be. and also converting it to square meters instead of millimeters. So I don't even have to think about typing anymore. It's just going to calculate it for me. The only thing is, it is a little bit buggy where if I did change the area, for some reason the grip doesn't work, and you'll notice stuff gets askew. I could obviously probably tweak it, but it was just basically to show you guys the possibilities. We can also do something similar with these. So basically, oh, actually, I'll quickly go through the couple first FAQs, and then I'll show you that one, which is a similar scenario, but using Excel. So someone asked about the view names, or named views rather. So basically, if I just go into here and I'll go to my view and I'll just create a new view, and I'll just move that over here. And maybe this is our window schedule. And I can actually define a window. So I'm going to say this is my window here. And I'll say OK. And now if I go back here and I go in here, I can actually get that same thing. So I'll just go to my window schedule and it'll zoom into here. So now I don't have to worry about finding it. And this is going to adjust to that weird scale that I created, unfortunately, from our last time, because it's picking up our viewport. I couldn't find a way for it to actually find the field. The closest I can get is if I just edit this. And it's basically just a named object, and it's going to find the named views. And then I could just change it to window schedule, say, OK, OK. And now it's changed that. So at least I don't have to type it. I wish it would pick up from the viewport and know its view name, but it won't actually find it, unfortunately. So that's the closest workaround I found for that one particular question. There was also some text ones. So maybe I'll just go back into this one. If we do make it def, and I'm just going to say a, and maybe middle center. OK, so we can make it annotative, and then we can start to say, let me just find, I'll just put that in here, and I'll put it, oh, actually it's a polygon, and 3. If I did make it into a block, and I will just make it a symbol. And then as soon as you click that it's annotative, you'll see that this ungrays. So basically, if you click on that, so the person was having issues with their text rotating as they were rotating blocks. So this is that way around it. So now it'll always match it. So if I did, let me just select that insertion point and select our block and just make it our block. So now as I start to rotate, you'll see that it's, oh, I did it wrong, but basically the principle is there. I just did it really quickly. As you start to rotate, it will keep that A always facing upwards and readable. So that's the way around that one. Similar to the Civil 3D one, we can edit attributed text. So it's just under our Express tools. If you have CAD-LT, then unfortunately you won't be able to do that. But a way around, say I wanted to renumber all these rooms, I could just go to export, and it'll just give us this. I'll just say that one, I'll replace it. And now I can just select all the attributed text that I want to change. It's outputted that folder. Now I'll just open up Excel quickly. Excel. I'll go to a new one. And we just need to go to data and then text. And we will find our text. Webinar. And we'll just load it in. So you'll see it's given us all that information that we had in here. So as you start to adjust this, you'll notice that I'll just copy this and I will just insert another. Oops. Just want to insert another row. Just move this over. I need to copy this same one. So I'm just going to change this to a 3 and this to nothing. And then I'm just going to say equals, I guess, this minus 100 plus 1,000. So basically, I just wanted to make them in the thousands. And now if I just hide this row, and I'll just save this. I already have one done, so I'm just going to skip that. But because if we just go into, import, and we go into our edited one, and I click open, you'll see that it's changed all these numbers to 1,000. And again, if I go to the original one, it'll change it back to those ones. So it's just very quickly, we can start to change it. I did mess up when I created this block. So if I just go into the properties, you'll see that depending on how you select what you want in your block, it's going to put the attributes in the order that you selected it. And I didn't really like that. As you noticed ideally in my Excel, I would have had the rooms on this side because then it would just be easier to manipulate that and then move and hide it. So you can basically, I just recreated that where I have the room name first and then room number. So if you just do block replace, let me just move this over to here. Block replace. I can then either, if you know the name, you can pick the name or you can actually just pick it. So I'm just going to say this one and I want to replace it with edited. So I'll just go okay. And now, and we'll just say purge, sure. Okay. And now if I look at this one here and in the properties, it changed my block to the edited one instead of the old one. So unfortunately, the way you pick your attributed data will specify its order. So if I had more, this could have been scrambled. So either take note of how you are placing them or just recreate it, which is what I did. And then I just replaced it. I'll quickly bring up this last thing. So if you did want to, let me just close that. If you did want some more features and some more examples of what I talked about for AutoCAD 2021, we do have our A2K store page that actually kind of shows all that in extra videos. So you'll see all of these features here. Yeah, something I forgot to mention, sorry. Like now you can actually use files on like Dropbox and the like. So for example, this one was on Dropbox. So if I did just quickly show you, save as, you'll see that this is actually located on my OneDrive. So that way you can open these files up on your iPad or in a different office on a different computer. As long as you have access to that folder, you'll be able to do that. So let me just open up this PowerPoint. We just did that. If you did miss part 1, we talked about the dynamic blocks, which I touched on and kind of tweaked in this one. We talked about Express tools, the action recorder, sheet sets, CI manipulation, and parametric functionality. So just make sure to check out our YouTube channel for that replay if you did miss that one. And I'll go through the questions now. So let me just open that up. Okay. Is there a way to we can use break at a point at an intersection of 2 lines, or does it get mixed up which line you want to break? Let me open that up. I think you have to select the line that you want anyways. So I'll just quickly do something similar. Yeah, see, so it says select object. So it won't actually let me select that one. And let me try the other one just to make sure as well. Break at point. Yeah, so it's only letting me select on that line. And even there, it's snapped to that one. Yes, there will be a link to the recording of the presentation, and it'll also be on our YouTube channel. Will these settings have to be reset when upgrading, or will it be automatic? Which settings? If you mean like basically the CUI, I have the same CUI in my 2019 and 2020, and I just migrated my settings, and all of my custom buttons and all my macros and all that have come along with it. So it's pretty good at bringing all that over. Even my tool palettes with all my extra stuff have all come over. So like all these blocks and the like. Provided those are the settings that you wanted to say. After updating a block file and you go to that file through the block library, it gets stuck on loading. Is this a bug or something more? I would probably send that to our support at a2ktechnologies.com.au and I can have a look at it, just because I don't know if it's that particular block itself or if it's every single block that's doing it. So we would have to kind of dissect that a bit more. And yeah, so just send us an email and then maybe link that actual block itself as well so we can test it on our end. I think that's the best way to go about it. And then is boundary the same as bpoly? I don't actually know, to be honest. Let me have a look. It looks to be the same. It's giving us the same stuff. I can have a look and help if it shows the same thing. But it's giving us the same options. So I'm assuming it's pretty much the same. And I think there are some in the chat. Oh, maybe not. If there are any other questions, please feel free to drop them in.